The Naru ships appeared in Earth's sky without warning on a crisp autumn morning. Most humans remember exactly where they were when the silver disks descended through the clouds above major cities worldwide. The news channels showed the same, scenes over and over, civilians pointing upward, military jets scrambling, and finally the elegant landing of the primary vessel in the United Nations Plaza. Admiral Park had been asleep when the first call came. She'd been working 18-hour days preparing Earth's modest defense network, never truly believing it would be needed in her lifetime. Now, watching the alien delegation emerge from their craft on her tablet screen, she felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. "They look almost like us," her assistant whispered as they watched the broadcast. The Naru were humanoid, taller and thinner than the average person, with skin that seemed to shimmer slightly under the cameras. Their eyes were larger, with vertical pupils that contracted in the Earth sunlight. When the Naru spoke, their translator devices converted their high-pitched tones into eerily perfect human languages. "We come as friends to welcome humanity to the galactic community," their leader announced. "We are the Naru, travelers and explorers, who have watched your remarkable progress with great interest." Over the next few days, as world leaders gathered to meet with the aliens, Admiral Park was invited to join the military contingent at the discussions. She sat quietly, observing while others asked questions about alien technology, culture, and intentions. "Our policy has always been one of gradual integration," the Naru diplomat explained. "We will share technologies appropriate to your development level, allowing safe expansion to nearby star systems." That night in her hotel room, Park reviewed her notes. Something felt wrong. The aliens were too perfect, too accommodating. Their answers came too quickly, as if rehearsed. When she finally fell asleep, she dreamed of wolves wearing sheep's clothing. The first gift from the Naru came 3 months later. Blueprints for faster-than-light travel, but with specific limitations. "For safety," they explained, "your first steps among the stars should be cautious ones." Park brought together a small team she trusted, including Commander Kim and Dr. Lee, a brilliant physicist who'd been overlooked by mainstream science because of his unconventional theories. "Study these designs," she told them in the underground facility she'd requisitioned. "Not just how they work, but why they're designed this way. What aren't they showing us?" While humanity celebrated its new alien friends and the promises of a bright interstellar future, Park's team worked in secret. Dr. Lee was the first to notice the pattern. "The navigation systems are needlessly complex," he pointed out one night, hollow-eyed from lack of sleep. "And look, they require constant communication with these relay points. We can't plot courses independently. They're keeping us on a leash," Commander Kim said quietly. "But why give us the technology at all?" The answer came 6 months later when Park's intelligence team intercepted an unusual transmission from the Naru embassy. The encryption was unlike anything they'd seen, but Dr. Lee had been working on translation algorithms. What they decoded changed everything. Subject-species integration proceeding according to standard protocol. Limited technology transfer initiated. Monitoring systems embedded as designed. Recommend proceeding to Phase 2 within 5 planetary cycles. Park stared at the message for a long time before speaking. "They've done this before." Further investigation revealed subtle monitoring devices embedded in all the technology the Naru had shared. Every ship built with their designs would report back to them: position, capabilities, even conversations on board. Despite Park's warnings, Earth's governments pushed forward with the Naru alliance. The promise of the stars was too tempting. The first human colony ships launched 18 months after first contact, heading for a nearby system the Naru had deemed suitable for human habitation. Park wasn't invited to the launch ceremony. Instead, she was in her secret facility watching Dr. Lee test his latest prototype, a modified engine based on Naru principles but without their limitations. "They don't understand how we think," Dr. Lee explained as the test engine glowed with power. "Humans make connections their species doesn't. We see patterns they miss. Or they think we're too primitive to notice," Park replied. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A young researcher on Park's team discovered that human brains processed multidimensional physics differently than the Naru. What took their species generations of collective knowledge to develop, humans could grasp intuitively. We're different from the other species they've encountered, Park realized. They expect us to follow their script, but we're reading between the lines. When the first colony was established on a planet they named New Earth, the public celebrations were spectacular. Few noticed the increased Naru presence. Advisors and technical experts who insisted on overseeing all aspects of colonial development. But in secret facilities on Earth and hidden labs on the new colony, Park's network grew. They built ships without monitoring systems, developed communications the Naru couldn't intercept, and prepared for what Park increasingly believed was inevitable. 3 years after first contact, a Naru delegation requested a private meeting with Earth's Leadership Council. Park managed to place recording devices in the chamber. The footage showed the Naru's first display of their true nature. "Your species develops too quickly," their leader stated coldly. "We have observed concerning patterns. New protocols must be implemented to ensure proper development. These protocols included restrictions on human research, permanent Naru oversight of all space activities, and limits on population growth in the colonies." When one council member objected, the Naru leader's demeanor changed. The friendly diplomat vanished, replaced by something predatory. "This is not a negotiation. These measures will be implemented. The alternative would be unfortunate." Park watched the recording with her core team. "Now we know," she said quietly. "They're not shepherds. They're farmers. And we're the livestock." The clock was ticking. The Naru would soon realize humans weren't following their carefully orchestrated plan. Park needed to prepare humanity for the moment when their friends revealed their true intentions. The deception was ending. The real conflict was about to begin. The morning sun streamed through the laboratory windows as Dr. Lee hunched over his workstation, dark circles under his eyes betraying another sleepless night. Around him, holographic displays showed engine schematics that glowed blue in the dim room. 5 years had passed since the Naru arrival, and humanity had spread to 7 nearby stars, always under the watchful eyes of their alien allies. "You should sleep occasionally," Commander Kim said, placing a steaming cup of coffee beside the scientist. Dr. Lee rubbed his eyes. "I'm close to something. Look at this." He gestured at the display where 2 engine designs rotated side by side, one smooth and elegant with the flowing lines of Naru engineering, the other rougher, but somehow more complex. "The left is what they gave us. The right is what I built yesterday." Commander Kim leaned closer. "Yours looks unfinished. But it's 3 times more efficient," Dr. Lee replied with a tired smile. "They're holding back on us, deliberately. This monitoring node?" He pointed to a crystalline structure, embedded in the Naru design. "It's not just for safety like they claimed. It reports every movement, every energy fluctuation back to their network." Across the solar system, similar discoveries were being made by Admiral Park's secret research teams. Human colonies now dotted nearby star systems, but each came with Naru technical advisors who insisted on overseeing all aspects of development. On the surface, everything seemed cooperative, but Park's network had uncovered disturbing patterns. "They restrict us in ways that make no sense," Park explained during a secure meeting with Earth's few trusted leaders. "Each colony can only develop certain industries. Our fastest ships are still 20% slower than even their transport vessels. And they're mapping everything: resources, population centers, defensive capabilities." "You think they're preparing for something?" asked the Secretary General, her face grave. "I think they've done this before," Park replied. "We've identified references to 12 other species in their communications. All followed the same pattern: first contact, limited technology sharing, then something they call integration. What the Naru hadn't counted on was humanity's unique approach to problem solving. Where other species apparently accepted Naru technology as given, humans immediately began taking it apart, questioning assumptions and finding workarounds. In a hidden facility beneath the lunar surface, Dr. Lee made his most significant breakthrough. He had assembled a team of 20 scientists from diverse fields, quantum physicists working alongside neuroscientists, evolutionary biologists collaborating with computer engineers. Their task: understand why humans seemed capable of advancing faster than the Naru expected. "It's in how our brains work," explained Dr. Jin, a neuroscientist who had joined the project. She displayed a comparative scan showing neural activity patterns. "See these pathways? The Naru brain we managed to scan from their medical database shows highly ordered sequential processing. Humans think more chaotically." "Chaos isn't usually an advantage," Commander Kim noted. "In this case it is," Dr. Lee said excitedly. "Their species evolved a linear approach to problem solving, effective but slow. Humans make intuitive leaps. We see connections they don't." The real test came when Dr. Lee's team tackled the most advanced Naru technology, their dimensional folding principles that made faster than light travel possible. According to fragments of intercepted communications, the Naru had developed this science over thousands of years. Dr. Lee's team began making meaningful advances within months. "It's like we're wired differently," he told Admiral Park during a secure transmission. "Humans can visualize higher dimensional space naturally. The mathematics that took them generations to develop, our team is deriving independently." Meanwhile, on the colony world New Earth, engineering teams were discovering they could modify Naru technology in ways the aliens insisted were impossible. Solar collection arrays were reconfigured to produce 40% more energy. Communication systems were enhanced to reach farther with less power. Most importantly, human engineers learned to disable or redirect the monitoring systems embedded in all Naru tech. What none of them knew was that the Naru had begun to notice. On their massive command ship orbiting a distant star, the Naru High, Council received troubling reports from their observers on human worlds. Subject species showing abnormal adaptation rates, the report stated. Modifications detected in provided technologies. Monitoring network integrity compromised in 3 colonial systems. Observer Han, whose assignment was monitoring Dr. Lee's official research team, though the hidden lunar facility remained undetected, added his own concerns. Human neural structures process dimensional mathematics differently. They achieve, through intuition, what our species developed through cumulative knowledge. Recommend immediate acceleration of integration timeline. The Council's decision was swift. Containment phase must advance. Prepare the fleet. Back on Earth, Admiral Park received an urgent message from her intelligence network embedded among the Naru advisors. It contained only 5 words. "They know. Prepare. Timeline accelerated." Park immediately activated sleeper cells throughout human space. Scientists, military personnel, and civilians who had been quietly trained and equipped for this moment. Hidden shipyards began ramping up production. Weapons developed in secret were distributed to key locations. Most importantly, Dr. Lee's team on the Moon finalized their masterpiece, a fully human-designed dimensional drive that outperformed the Naru version by orders of magnitude, with no monitoring systems or artificial limitations. "We're still outgunned," Commander Kim pointed out during the emergency planning session. "Their armada is massive compared to our fleet." Admiral Park studied the tactical display showing Naru fleet movements throughout nearby space. "We don't need to match them ship for ship. We just need to survive their first strike." "And then?" asked Dr. Lee. Park's expression was grim but determined. "Then we show them why humans have always been the apex predator on our world. We evolved not by being the strongest, but by outthinking stronger opponents." As if on cue, sensors detected massive energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. The Naru fleet had arrived earlier than expected, dozens of massive warships dropping out of dimensional space. "They're not even trying to hide their intentions anymore," Commander Kim said quietly. Admiral Park nodded to her communications officer. "Send the alert to all colonies. Operation Lighthouse is now active." Across human space, hidden transmitters activated. The message was simple. The deception is over. The real fight begins now. The Naru thought they were dealing with useful primitives. They were about to discover humanity's hidden capacity. The massive Naru command vessel hovered over Earth, its shadow falling across North America like an eclipse. Smaller ships flanked it, their sleek hulls reflecting sunlight as they maintained position. After 5 years of false friendship, the Naru had shown their true selves. On the view screens of every communication device across human space, the face of the Naru High Commander appeared. Gone was the warm, diplomatic demeanor of first contact. His large eyes were cold, his mouth set in a firm line. "People of Earth and colonies," he began, his translator making his voice unnaturally smooth. "Your development has proceeded at an unexpected rate. We have detected unauthorized modifications to shared technologies and unsanctioned research. This represents a breach of our arrangement." In the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Park watched alongside Earth's military leadership. Her face remained expressionless, but her knuckles whitened as she gripped the edge of the console. "The following measures will be implemented immediately," the Naru commander continued. "All advanced research facilities will be placed under direct Naru supervision. Human ships will install approved monitoring systems. Colony expansion will cease. Population controls will be implemented on all worlds." The room remained silent as he delivered his final point. "These are not suggestions. To demonstrate our resolve." The screen split to show a view of space near Mars. Phobos, the larger of the red planet's moons, hung suspended against the black. Without warning, a beam of concentrated energy lanced from one of the Naru vessels. The moon's surface glowed briefly before the entire satellite shattered into countless fragments. "You have 6 Earth hours to signal compliance," the commander finished before the transmission cut. Admiral Park didn't hesitate. "Send the activation codes, all stations, all colonies." Her second-in-command looked nervous. "If we do this, there's no going back." "There was never any going back," Park replied. "They were always going to reach this point. The only question was whether we'd be ready." Across human space, hidden installations powered up. On Earth, in the lunar base, on Mars, and throughout the colonies, systems that had been built in secret came online. The greatest gamble in human history was about to begin. In orbit above Earth, the first sign that something was wrong came when 3 of the smaller Naru vessels suddenly lost power, their systems disabled by targeted electromagnetic pulses from satellites that had appeared to be ordinary communication relays. On the colony world New Terra, Naru advisors found themselves locked out of control centers as hidden security teams moved with practiced precision. Years of preparation were paying off in these crucial first minutes. The Naru commander's face appeared again on Admiral Park's screen, anger distorting his features. "What is the meaning of this? Your species cannot hope to resist. Surrender, now or face extinction." Park stood straight, her voice calm. "We've studied you for 5 years while you thought you were studying us. We know about the 12 other species you've subjugated through this same pattern of false friendship followed by domination. That ends today." "You are primitive creatures," the commander snarled. "Your technology is based on ours. Your ships are inferior. Your weapons are inadequate." Park allowed herself a small smile. "About that, you should check on your fleet near Tau Ceti." The Naru commander's expression changed subtly as he received reports from his distant forces. Near the human colony of New Sol, the Naru had positioned their second-largest battle group. According to incoming data, 3 of their dreadnoughts had just gone silent. "Impossible," he hissed. "You made a fundamental error," Park explained. "You judged our technological capacity by what we showed you, but humans have always kept our best advantages hidden. Across the solar system and beyond, the battle was unfolding. Naru ships found their communication networks disrupted by technologies they didn't understand. The human vessels they faced were not the simple transports and modest defense craft they had permitted. These ships moved differently, employed weapons the Naru had never seen. Most surprising to the aliens was the human battle strategy. While the Naru operated with rigid central command structures, human forces fought with alarming independence. Each ship captain made tactical decisions without waiting for orders, creating combat patterns too chaotic to predict. "Your species cannot prevail," the Naru commander insisted, though doubt had crept into his voice. Our numbers are vastly superior. Numbers aren't everything, Park replied. You're fighting the way you've always fought. We're fighting the way humans have, fought for thousands of years, adapting, improvising, finding weaknesses. On the front lines, Commander Kim led a strike force against the Naru flagship near Jupiter. His vessels were smaller and fewer, but they moved with a coordination that baffled the alien tacticians. Where the Naru expected human ships to protect themselves, they instead saw sacrificial maneuvers, smaller craft deliberately drawing fire to create openings for others. They're behaving irrationally, a Naru tactical officer reported, confusion evident even through the translation system. Sacrificing units for positional advantage. The Naru commander couldn't understand why this approach was working. His species had evolved from herd animals, with survival of the collective paramount. The concept of sacrificing individuals for tactical gain was foreign to their thinking. What shocked the Naru even more came next. Throughout the colonies, the subjugated species they had controlled for generations began to rise up. These supposedly docile client races had received messages from human operatives, revealing the truth of their subjugation and offering alliance. You think we're alone in this fight? Park said, seeing the commander's reaction to these reports. While you were watching us, we were reaching out to those you've oppressed. They've been waiting for someone to show them resistance was possible. The Naru commander's composure finally broke. You don't understand what you're doing. The galaxy has an order that has existed for millennia. Your species cannot be allowed to disrupt it. That's exactly what we're going to do, Park replied calmly. Here's our ultimatum. Withdraw your forces from human space immediately. Recognize the independence of all sentient species and your policy of technological suppression. Or what? The commander demanded. Admiral Park nodded to her communications officer, who sent a coded signal. Across Naru space, hidden devices activated, planted by human agents and sympathizers from other species. These were not weapons but transmitters, broadcasting evidence of Naru manipulation to every world in their dominion. Or watch your empire crumble from within, Park answered. Every species you've controlled now knows the truth. Your authority exists only through deception and fear. We've taken both away. The battle raged for hours across multiple star systems. Naru numerical superiority was real, but their rigid tactics faltered against human unpredictability. When they finally called for a ceasefire, nearly a third of their fleet was disabled or destroyed. In the aftermath, as negotiators from both sides met on a neutral station, the Naru High Command faced a reality they had never anticipated, a species that hadn't followed the pattern. A prey animal that fought back was one thing, a predator that hunted the hunters was something else entirely. You fight like no species we have encountered, the Naru negotiator admitted. Your tactics, your willingness to sacrifice, these are not behaviors we understand. Admiral Park's response was simple. Then you should have studied Earth's history more carefully. We've been fighting each other since we could pick up sticks. We've had plenty of practice. The galaxy was changing. The ultimatum had been answered not with submission, but with resistance. And for the first time in thousands of years, the Naru faced an adversary they could not simply overwhelm. The bridge of the destroyer. Dauntless shuddered as another blast hit their shields. Commander Kim steadied himself against the tactical display, where red dots representing Naru vessels surrounded his small battle group. This was the third engagement in as many days, each one pushing human forces to their limits. Shields at 28%, his operations officer called out. 2 more hits and we're exposed. Kim nodded calmly. All ships, execute pattern Hydra. Without questioning the order, the 5 vessels under his command broke formation, each accelerating in a different direction. To the Naru targeting systems, it appeared as random flight. Panic, perhaps, or system failures causing the human ships to scatter. It was neither. As the Naru vessels adjusted to pursue what seemed like easy prey, the human ships suddenly reversed, course-cutting impossibly tight turns that their inertial dampeners barely managed. The maneuver brought 3 of them directly behind the largest Naru cruiser. Fire everything, Kim ordered. The concentrated assault overwhelmed the alien vessel's aft shields. As it began to vent atmosphere, the human ships were already moving, again, creating another unpredictable pattern. This scene was playing out across 3 star systems, as what historians would later call the Liberation War entered its second month. The initial surprise of human resistance had worn off, but the Naru were still struggling to counter tactics they found incomprehensible. Back on Earth, Admiral Park studied the galactic map in her command center. Red markers showed Naru fleet movements, blue indicated human forces, and yellow highlighted worlds of the formerly subjugated species now rising in rebellion. They're pulling forces from their core worlds, her intelligence officer noted. They've never had to fight a war on multiple fronts. Park nodded. Because they've never faced an enemy who could make allies of their subjects. The Naru see other species as resources to be managed, not potential partners. This fundamental difference in outlook was proving decisive. Where the Naru expected submission, humans offered cooperation. Representative Choi, once a diplomat and now humanity's chief envoy to alien worlds, had traveled secretly to meet leaders of the subjugated species. They control you through isolation, she had told the Council of Ridgebacks, a reptilian species, who had lived under Naru rule for 7 generations. Each species is told they alone receive Naru guidance. Each is kept separate, prevented from developing technologies that might connect you to others. The Ridgeback elder had studied her, with ancient, skeptical eyes. And humans are different? You would not seek to replace the Naru as our masters? Choi had placed a data crystal on the council table. Judge for yourselves. These are our histories, our wars, our mistakes. We have fought ourselves as often as we've cooperated. We don't claim to be perfect. We only offer a choice the Naru never gave you. Similar conversations occurred throughout Naru territory. Not all species joined the human cause, but enough did to create a serious problem for the Imperium. Suddenly, their carefully managed subjects were asking questions, demanding answers, and in some cases openly rebelling. Meanwhile, Dr. Lee's team had completed their masterwork, quantum dimension disruptors that targeted the very basis of Naru, technology. The device was elegant in its simplicity, exploiting a vulnerability in the aliens' approach to dimensional physics that only human intuition could have discovered. It creates a cascading failure in their energy distribution systems, Dr. Lee explained to Admiral Park. Their ships will maintain life support, but weapons and propulsion will fail. Can they adapt to it? Park asked. Lee shook his head. Not quickly. Their entire technological approach would need to be rebuilt from the ground up. The first deployment of the disruptors occurred near Jupiter's orbit. A Naru battle group of 15 ships found their systems suddenly failing, leaving them drifting and defenseless. Rather than destroying the helpless vessels, human forces boarded them, taking the crews prisoner, another concept foreign to the Naru, who expected defeated enemies to be eliminated. The war reached its turning point 3 months in. The Naru, frustrated by their inability to crush the human resistance through conventional means, made a decision that revealed their true nature. Their planet-killer weapon, a technology they had kept hidden from their subjects, targeted the human colony of New Sol. We regret this necessity, the Naru High Commander announced system-wide. But your species leaves us no choice. Witness the consequence of defiance. 8 million human colonists perished as the weapon destabilized the planet's core, causing catastrophic tectonic activity. Cities collapsed, oceans boiled. Within hours, a thriving world became a graveyard. The tragedy, meant to break human will, had the opposite effect. Earth's response was swift and terrible. Operation Prometheus, planned but held in reserve until this moment, was activated. All ships, execute final preparations, Admiral Park ordered, her voice steady despite the grief evident in her eyes. The Naru have shown us exactly who they are. Now we show them who we are. Across human space, specially modified vessels moved into position. Each carried a single quantum dimension disruptor, enhanced to affect not just ship systems, but the Naru command network itself. The attack targeted not their ships or worlds, but the very structure of their empire. On the front lines, Commander Kim led the assault force. His flotilla engaged the Naru defenders, while specialized strike teams deployed the disruptors at key junction points in space. "Remember, New Soul," he told his crews. "But remember also who we are. We fight not for vengeance alone, but for a future where no species holds dominion over another." The disruptors activated simultaneously, sending cascading failures throughout the Naru network. Ship after ship lost power. Command centers fell silent. The carefully ordered hierarchy that had maintained their control for millennia collapsed in hours. What happened next surprised even Admiral Park. Rather than continue fighting, many Naru commanders surrendered once cut off from the central authority. Without the hierarchical command structure, individual Naru officers seemed incapable of sustained independent action. "Their psychology is built around the hive," Dr. Jin explained as reports flooded in. "They can function alone, but decisions come from above. Without that guidance, they default to self-preservation." The war wasn't won in a single stroke. Isolated Naru forces continued fighting for weeks, but the momentum had shifted decisively. As news of New Soul spread, more subjugated species joined the human alliance. Worlds that had never communicated with each other began sharing knowledge, comparing notes on their centuries of manipulation. 6 months after the Naru ultimatum, their once mighty empire had fragmented into isolated pockets of resistance. Human forces, augmented by allies from a dozen liberated worlds, methodically contained these remaining threats. On the Naru homeworld, a delegation led by Admiral Park and Representative Choi met with what remained of their leadership council. The meeting took place in a grand hall designed to impress visitors with Naru superiority, a futile gesture now. "Your species has disrupted the natural order," the Naru elder said, his translator conveying both anger and bewilderment. "For 20,000 years, we have guided lesser species toward controlled development." "Controlled" being the operative word, Choi replied. "You weren't guides. You were farmers, harvesting technological and resource benefits while ensuring no one grew strong enough to challenge you." The elder's large eyes blinked slowly. "It was necessary. Uncontrolled development leads to chaos." Admiral Park stepped forward. "What you call chaos, we call freedom. The galaxy doesn't need shepherds who are really wolves. It needs equals who respect each other's right to determine their own path." As the delegation departed, Commander Kim noted the confused expressions on the Naru faces. "They truly don't understand what happened, do they?" "No," Park replied. "They evolved as herd animals who succeeded through rigid cooperation. We evolved as adaptable predators who survived through intelligence and innovation. They never saw us coming because they couldn't imagine a predator species developing spaceflight. The predator had been unleashed, but unlike the Naru's fears, humanity's purpose wasn't conquest. The real work was just beginning, building a galaxy where no species dominated another, where technological development wasn't controlled from above. It would be messy, unpredictable, and at times dangerous. In other words, exactly the kind of environment where humans had always thrived. The new Galactic Council chambers gleamed under soft lighting, its circular design deliberately different from the hierarchical amphitheater the Naru had used for millennia. Today marked 1 year since the signing of the Treaty of Terra, and representatives from 14 species gathered to mark the occasion. At the center of the chamber stood a simple monument, a piece of blackened earth from New Soul, preserved in crystal as a reminder of both tragedy and triumph. Admiral Park, now Ambassador Park, adjusted her formal uniform as she took her place at the human delegation's table. The last year had been exhausting, rebuilding shattered worlds, dismantling Naru control systems, and most challenging of all, creating a governance structure that genuinely treated all species as equals. "The chamber design still feels strange," whispered Representative Choi beside her. "The Naru delegation keeps looking for the elevated platform where the dominant species should sit." Park nodded slightly. "Old habits die hard. They ruled for 20,000 years. We can't expect them to adapt overnight." The Naru representatives indeed seemed uncomfortable with the arrangement. Their once elegant attire was simpler now, their demeanor more subdued. The former masters of the galaxy were learning to live as equals, a painful transition their species had never anticipated. The session began with reports from the various recovery committees. The Ridgeback delegate described efforts to restore their ancestral technologies, knowledge the Naru had suppressed for generations. The Volta, an energy-based species, discussed their work helping former Naru subject worlds rebuild independent power systems. When the Naru representative rose to speak, a subtle tension filled the room. Elder Jin, once a mid-level administrator in their empire, now spoke for what remained of their government. The transitional aid program proceeds as agreed, he stated, his translator conveying his flat tone. Naru engineering teams have completed decommissioning weapons platforms in the Cygnus sector. Our educational facilities have been reformed to provide technical knowledge without our previous constraints. The careful phrasing wasn't lost on anyone. The Naru still struggled to admit the fundamental wrongness of their previous approach, referring to their systematic suppression of other species' development as guidance or constraints rather than oppression. When the formal proceedings ended, Ambassador Park found herself approached by Dr. Song, the xenobiologist whose work had revealed so much about the differences between humans and other galactic species. Ambassador, I've completed my comprehensive evolutionary study, Dr. Song said, handing over a data tablet. I believe you'll find the conclusions illuminating. Later that evening, Park read the report in her private chambers overlooking the capital city. The study was fascinating, a detailed analysis of evolutionary paths for all known sentient species in the galaxy. Remarkable, she murmured as the pattern became clear. Every species besides humanity had evolved from prey animals. The Naru had been herd creatures, constantly watching for predators and finding safety in rigid social structures and numbers. The Ridgebacks had been burrowers, the Volta swarm organisms that gained protection through collective behavior. Only humans had evolved from apex predators, creatures that hunted actively rather than simply trying to avoid being hunted. This difference had shaped everything from human psychology to social structures to problem-solving approaches. We don't just react to threats, Park realized. We anticipate them. We don't just adapt to environments. We reshape them. We don't just accept limitations. We test them constantly. The next morning, she shared these findings with the Human Strategy Committee. Commander Kim, who had led many of the decisive battles in the war, nodded thoughtfully. This explains why their integration strategy worked on other species but failed catastrophically with us, he said. Prey species accept incremental improvements in their situation. Predators are never satisfied. Dr. Lee, whose technological innovations had been crucial to the human victory, pointed to another aspect of the report. Look at the section on neural pathways. The prey species all evolved linear problem-solving, methodical, cautious approaches that minimize risk. Human brains make intuitive leaps, seeing connections that appear irrational until proven effective. The implications went beyond understanding the past. As humanity helped reshape the galactic community, these insights were proving vital. Some species needed guidance to overcome millennia of conditioned subservience. Others required reassurance that humans wouldn't simply replace the Naru as dominators. 6 months later, Ambassador Park stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital station, watching ships from a dozen worlds come and go freely. Beside her stood Elder Taro of the Ridgebacks, his scaled skin catching the light from the distant sun. Your people continue to surprise us, the elder said. When you defeated the Naru, many expected you to take their place, to become the new masters. Instead, you dismantle your own advantages, share technologies freely, encourage others to develop independently. Park smiled slightly. That's not entirely accurate. We're not acting against our interests. We've simply learned something the Naru never understood. True strength doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from building a system where everyone is invested in collective success. A predator philosophy? The elder asked with what passed for amusement in his species. Perhaps, Park acknowledged. On Earth, the most successful predators are those that maintain balance in their ecosystems. Destroy too much, and eventually, you starve. That philosophy was being put to the test throughout the galaxy. On formerly subjugated worlds, humans worked alongside local species, helping them recover technologies the Naru had suppressed. Dr. Lee's team had created open-source libraries of scientific knowledge, available to all species without restriction. Everything went smoothly. Some former Naru military commanders refused to accept the new reality, establishing hidden bases from which they launched desperate attacks. Some formerly subjugated species sought revenge rather than reconciliation. The path forward required constant negotiation, compromise, and occasionally decisive action. On the colony world New Hope, built to honor the victims of New Soul, Commander Kim oversaw the Mixed Species Defense Academy, the first of its kind, where tactics and technologies from 14 different evolutionary paths combined to create something entirely new. The Naru maintained control by keeping species isolated, he explained to the first graduating class. Our strength comes from diversity, different ways of thinking, different approaches to solving problems. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone had anticipated. Species that had been kept apart for thousands of years were sharing knowledge, combining technologies in ways the Naru had systematically prevented. The pace of innovation accelerated exponentially as different evolutionary perspectives tackled the same problems. 1 year after Dr. Song's report, she presented an updated analysis to the Galactic Council. Representatives from all species, including the Naru, listened attentively as she explained her findings. The evidence is clear, she concluded. The Naru strategy of controlled development actually hindered progress rather than preventing chaos. In just 2 years of open cooperation, we've seen more meaningful advancement than in the previous century of Naru management. The Naru representative looked uncomfortable, but didn't object. Their species was slowly adapting to their new role, still respected for their knowledge but no longer permitted to dictate others' development. As the session ended, Ambassador Park found herself walking alongside the Naru Elder Jin. For a moment, they observed the bustling activity in the council halls where beings of all forms mingled freely. Your Dr. Song's analysis of human evolution as predators, the elder said finally. It explains much about why our approach failed with your species, but it raises a troubling question. Will humans eventually consume all as predators do? Park considered this carefully before answering. That misunderstands both predators and humans. A true apex predator doesn't seek to consume everything. It maintains balance, takes what it needs, no more, protects its territory but doesn't expand endlessly. And this is how humans see themselves? As benevolent predators? There was skepticism in the elder's voice. We see ourselves as having a choice, Park replied. Our evolutionary history gave us certain tendencies: aggression, territoriality, innovation. But our consciousness gives us the ability to choose how we express those tendencies. We can be destructive or creative. We can dominate or protect. She gestured to the memorial stone from New Soul that stood in the center of the council chamber. That reminds us of both possibilities, of what others might do to us, and what we might become if we forget our principles. The Pax Humana, as historians were already calling it, wasn't based on human dominance, but on a fundamentally human idea, that different beings with different perspectives could choose to work together rather than subjugate one another. It was messy, inefficient, and sometimes chaotic compared to the rigid order of the Naru Imperium. It was also producing a level of innovation, cultural exchange, and general well-being unprecedented in galactic history. As Ambassador Park prepared for another day of complex negotiations and careful diplomacy, she reflected on the strange path that had brought humanity to this point. The Naru had arrived on Earth expecting to find another manageable species to add to their collection. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping predator, one that hunted not for dominance, but for something the galaxy had never seen before: freedom. The Yao. Conflict had indeed confirmed humanity as the galaxy's top predator, but the true revelation wasn't humanity's capacity for violence. It was their ability to choose a different path once the fighting ended, to be predators who protected rather than merely consumed. To maintain the delicate balance that all true, apex predators instinctively understood. Strength comes not from controlling everything, but from creating an ecosystem where all can thrive.